Oil and Gas Investors' exclusive Premium Blend video series presents in-depth conversations with executives in E&P, finance, transactions, and technology. How many drilled but uncompleted or DUC wells are there in the United States?
There is a great deal of discussion, though the number seems to settle around 3,500 to 3,800 abnormal DUCs, and anywhere from 1,000, 1,200, some people have mentioned 1,500 regular DUCs that we carry. And so the total number could be as high as 5,000, which I consider inflated, and the appropriate number is probably somewhere in the 4,000s.
What price range would be required to bring these wells back on, and how quickly could this be done?
We did a fairly extensive survey of a bunch of people in the E&P business, and the magic number seems to be between 45 and 50. The DUCs will start being completed.
Does the well stimulation sector, which has lost personnel and idled equipment, need to add capacity in order to start this process?
We don't really think so. There's 18 million horsepower when we came into this year of pressure pumping horsepower in the U.S. How much of that is cannibalized, how much is idle that just the operators can't afford to keep them up is the $64,000 question. We think current utilization is about 35%. But the problem is that 35% of the equipment that's out there is currently working daylight hours, 5 days a week, 14, 16 hours a day. And so if I were to add another crew onto that existing set of equipment, I may not need any more equipment. I'll just have to work 24 hours a day. And in terms of adding people, we did a fairly extensive interview process of the largest pressure pumping companies. And that said, you know, we've got to hire these people, we've got to train them, we've got to make sure they don't kill themselves the first day on the job. It could take a month to hire people. There are a number of pressure pumping companies who have been locking up their good equipment behind gates so their own people couldn't cannibalize it. And so the well-funded companies, which are the big ones, and a couple of the smaller ones that don't have balance sheet issues, have a lot of equipment ready to go back to work first phone call they get. So I don't think that there's going to be any headwind from that perspective at all.
What is your take on attrition and pressure pumping?
Talking to even the companies that make the equipment who have a vested interest in this not being the answer, they say that ultimately as much as 15 million of this horsepower can come back to the market. Now the first price increases will get the first equipment back, and the last price increases, which will be in a couple of years, will get the last equipment back. So it's going to be a stair-step approach, which with every increase in margin or price, cash flow is really the issue, more and more equipment will come off from where it's been parked next to that fence back into the field.
In terms of drilling rigs, how do you see the U.S. land fleet coming out of this downturn?
I've got about 425 land rigs working right now. 18 months ago, I had 700 rigs that were drilling horizontal wells that are idle today. Now they're not all 1,500 horsepower AC rigs, but they were capable rigs, upgraded SCRs and the like, who were drilling horizontal wells. And all of those rigs, most all of those rigs are still available and would like to go back to work. And if it's owned by a private company with no debt, then $1 of free cash flow is a victory. And so when you look at the higher productivity of the new wells we're drilling, the improved efficiency of the wells we're drilling, the likelihood that we put those 700 idle rigs back to work drilling horizontal wells in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years is a stretch. And so there's no question the most capable rigs will go to work first drilling the horizontal sections. There's going to actually be a number of private companies who go drill vertical wells though in the Permian because they're lower cost base and they've got the acreage. So not all the rigs that go back to work will be the Tier 1 rigs, but all the rigs that go back to work drilling horizontal pad rigs will be Tier 1 rigs. But we've got an awful long way to go before we soak up that available supply. So that sector looks a little troubled to us going forward.
To stay up to date on the most recent Hart Energy videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking here.